talking famous.
What's up, y'all? Welcome back to Talk Infamous.
Hey.
But yeah, we're good. We're happy to be back. We know it's been a while since we last checked in. So we just want to try to hop in and just, get to the subject topic.
Yeah.
Which, this week we decided to talk on the situation. Well, it's going to be amongst many things, but we decided to talk on, the recent situation with Kyrie Irving, right?
Yes.
And, also, pertaining to, Kanye West and what else would you say it pertains to? This
Nick Cannon. Everybody that basically
the Jewish community.
Yeah.
I was trying to refrain from saying it, but like
I said what I said. But like it, you don't like it. I sure damn don't like it. Well, then what you want me to do? Okay, you don't like it.
to keep it frank, that's what we're going to be talking about.
right.
And just and how it pertains to our culture and our voices within our culture. So
You're gonna dig right into it. So I
Yeah.
know y'all been seeing in social media with Kyrie Irving, like he's getting a lot of backlash from what he said on what he posted on his Twitter. Do you have that tweet, by the way?
I do not have the tweet, but I know. Can I just give a little like a gist of what it is?
Yes.
I know. So pretty much the tweet was kind of like him showcasing a documentary called what was the name of it?
Sorry, y'all.
Yeah, it's okay.
Black Hebrews turned into Negroes.
Yeah.
Sorry,
so,
Hebrews to Negroes wake up Black America.
And you can find that on Amazon actually. So yeah, that was pretty much him like showcasing a documentary, and I think he kind of did it in the same midst of with Kanye West, because Kanye West recently got into some controversy for his thoughts pertaining to the Jewish community, and as you know, he was dropped from Adidas as well as Balenciaga, Gap. So yeah, I think Kyrie, I don't know, I can't say Kyrie did it in just of that. I feel like, he was just trying to follow the tone of the conversation, because I feel
Right.
like, the conversation, even though, because I really didn't get too much into Kanye West, exactly what he was talking about, just because Kanye West been in the news, when he gets in the news often, and, I just had to take a mental break.
And also too, I just feel like Kyrie Irving, because he's not so much into social media, so when he does speak up,
Yeah.
I think we can only focus on what he's talking about. I think with other artists like Kanye or any other artist, they start to talk about other situations that have nothing to do with what he's
Yeah.
trying to say, whether it's his family or even Nick Cannon. Like he was faced backlash by the Jewish community because of comments that they thought was anti-Semitic.
Which weren't.
And situations like that, I think that the public end up getting confused and start talking about his kids.
Yeah.
Like that's why we was like, you know what, this is a perfect time to segue and to highlight Kyrie Irving's story.
And I think another thing where you're saying it does make sense to what's coming from, because someone like Kanye West is he's perceived to be erratic in his thoughts.
Right.
So yeah, like you said, you can get confused, and then the controversy that surrounds him and him always having to say something, which we love. We love when it's coming from the right place. But with, like you said, Kyrie, someone who doesn't really speak that much, but when he does say something, he's very steadfast on what he's saying.
Exactly.
Very
yeah.
informative, and yeah, I feel like he is a very powerful Black voice in the community as far as entertainment and sports. But also, I know you said something about anti-Semitic. So I know you had a definition for anti-Semitic. Can we get into that? So people, I think that's a great part to start off.
Thank you, Saint. So the definition of anti-Semitic is hostile to or prejudice against Jewish people. Anti-Semitic remarks were posted on the site. There's actually a website. Actually, you can go on Google and actually get the definition of anti-Semitic. Apparently, they name it as a working definition. So it's a definition that's constantly being modified and basically being edited to make sure that the definition is able to tell a story.
And evolve over time?
And evolve over time.
And what do you think is like the relevance behind that? Why is that relevant?
So it's very relevant because the thing is with words have so much power. So in the event that you're basically saying that this thing is anti-Semitic, anything that's fall along those categories is going to basically prove a point. Let me give you the full text of the IHRA working definition. All right. So these are all the points that they use. And this is honestly shown on various sites. So I guess they all had to collaborate to make sure that the working definition is shown throughout all social media and the internet. So calling for aiding or justifying the killer or harming Jews in the name of radical ideology or an extremist view of religion, making mendacious, dehumanizing, demonizing, or stereotypical allegations about Jews as such, or the power of Jews as collectives, such as, especially, not exclusively, the myth about a world Jewish conspiracy, or Jews controlling the media, economy, government, or other societal institutions. All right? Pay attention to that one. There's a few more. I'm just going to go over briefly. Accusing Jews as people of being responsible for real or imagined wrongdoing committed by a single Jewish person or group, or even for acts committed by non-Jews. All right? Denying the fact, scope, and mechanisms or intentionally of the genocide of the Jewish people at the hands of National Socialist Germany and its supporters and accomplices during the World War II, the Holocaust. Accusing the Jews as a people or Israel as a state, or inventing or exaggerating the Holocaust. Okay? It's quite a few. I don't want to go over so much because you can find this online.
Yeah.
All right, so some of those I felt like was very important to highlight those particular points of the working definition.
Yeah.
Because it's I just thought it was kind of ironic. Like, you couldn't even, one of the points was like making mendacious, dehumanizing, demonizing, or stereotypical allegations. Of course, we don't want anybody to be stereotypical against me, any type of group
Race,
that you're
group, yeah.
or group that you're associated with.
Yeah.
But accusing Jews as a people of being responsible for real or imagined wrongdoing committed by a single Jewish person. Yeah.
And it also was the one about the media. Regardless of that, I just want to make sure that
contemporary examples of anti-Semitism in public life, the media, schools, workplace.
Oh.
I just felt like, so wait, you can't even speak up, basically, because you're saying that you can't even accuse Jews of making you feel this type of way, or, seeing certain events, and you're not able to speak up. It's strange to me that you can't even speak up when you feel like there's a wrongdoing.
Right.
And so that I just felt like it's so important to know what the definition of anti-Semitism is, because once they create a definition and it's basically acknowledged by all these different governments
and institutions,
once it's in policy, it's so much easier to use policy against people as a retaliation for saying stuff that they don't like about the community.
And this is why they're able to effectively, remove people. Well, in this case, Black people in power or who hold positions. They're able to take so much away from them when they are saying things that they don't agree with.
Exactly. And what's strange to me too, the movie Hebrews to Negroes, it does talk about Black Hebrews.
Yeah. And,
in some cases where Black people, like, those particular groups of Black people are speaking up and saying, things of wrongdoing or what they've seen as a pattern when it comes to the white Jewish community.
Yeah.
I just feel like it's unfair to pin them up because you don't even know what religion they associate with. You don't know how they identify it. Yeah. So, if you have a Black person that's on a stage making jokes about Black people, there's nothing wrong with that. If you have a Jewish person making jokes about Jewish stuff, there's nothing wrong with that because they come from the same group. So if you have
a Jewish person making a joke about Black people, there really is no
there's no backlash. And the thing is, if Black people associate or identify as the true Hebrews,
yes,
then they should have the right to speak on whatever involves their community
and have a perspective.
And
I think that's the thing. I think, like you said, it's not like you said. You said pertaining to like being of one of the things, like you can't really accuse, or pretty much you can't have an opinion or perspective. And
unless
I feel
you're
like
from that group, right?
Yeah, and I think that's the problem with the Jewish community. Sorry, I want to say that's the issue with the Jewish community. Not all of it, but like at least the ones who are the higher up in the ranks, I guess, the elite.
Right.
You're not able to share your perspective, and that's simply what Kyrie was doing. He was sharing his perspective, and I feel like when you're sharing your perspective, they always kind of demonize it. It's like, no, I'm just sharing what my side of history is, and I feel like a lot of times when Black people try to do that, they get demonized, or because simply what he was doing was like he just shared a resource, which was a produced documentary that had information. And he said, here, like, look at this. And he tried to enlighten his people. You know what I mean?
And I was able to watch it too. And it wasn't, honestly, I watched a bit of it, and I didn't see anything that was anti-Semitic in there. Actually, what I've really seen was history and just research and basically just sources that he used to present a particular statement, and he provided evidence with it. And I think that was kind of scary to other people that do identify as Jewish, because
it's challenging their history.
It does challenge their history. And I think for someone to be speaking about what they think their history, what they feel and know that their history is, and for someone else to say, no, that's not true, or you know what, we're going to retaliate because we don't like the way you said that. I just feel like it's unfair to them. Definitely if somebody's trying to speak their truth and what they identify as.
And that's just like a bigger problem in our world, and I guess in America, when it comes to even, you know, between black people and white people. Like, whenever we try to, because they're perfectly fine when we talk about slavery and injustice and oppression, they're perfectly fine with that. But once we start talking about, you know, us being gods and goddess and us being the Aboriginal people, it's like, oh shit, they don't like that. They don't want to have that conversation. They don't want to, you know,
entertain that.
You don't want to entertain that even in the, you know, the institutions and in schools. They don't want to rework history to like let's try to have a different side of history. It's always like attack. Like, why can't we ever just come to a space where we can just have conversations about this? And I remember like back in the days, like there used to be like ABC channels or like PBS where they used to have like the round tables, and people used to be able to like challenge, you know, black historians or black scholars and, you know, white scholars or people from around the world would be able to have those conversations. Wow, and
that's interesting.
Be combative.
I miss those.
I miss those too, and I've been very intentional about watching those things because I was young in that era, you know what I mean? So I didn't really seen it, but
you wasn't able to absorb it.
Exactly. But now when I go back on YouTube and looking at it now, like, yo, damn, like this is what we're missing. We're missing conversation. You know what I mean? And I think not only are we missing conversation, we're also missing great public speakers.
Yes.
And a lot of times in our community now, what has happened is a lot of our public speakers are entertainers.
Oh my God, speak on it, because I got a lot to say about that.
And that's the issue. Is like we don't have, you know, a Malcolm X, or even it's not so much is an issue with entertainers being public speakers. It's just that a lot of times entertainers aren't
as well equipped,
and they're not willing to take on that challenge because they know at the end you want to talk about, like, it extends back to the Jewish people,
right?
When they sign that contract in the music or entertainment industry, pretty much any industry, they sign that to a Jewish man. You know, they working with the Jewish, you know what I mean? The
Jewish people, yes.
Yeah, I mean, you got the Jewish lawyer, the Jewish accountant.
And it's not, honestly, like, even to say, oh, Jewish people, honestly, you can go through a lot of public records and see the last names and put a piece. So it's not like we're just pulling stuff out of our butt, you know?
A butt. It is white people in power, like, in, you know, positions. You know, they're not, a lot of times they're not willing to compromise, you know, their integrity to speak on shit. And, you know, that's when you get a Kyrie, or even when you get a Kanye West, you know,
they feel very threatened.
And it's like, it's crazy. I was thinking about it too. It's like, because, you know, Kanye West, you know, he definitely has his ways. I don't agree with everything he says, but I would definitely say I could see how, even, like, you know, I haven't touched on, like, on the things he's been saying recently. I've been picking up pieces, but I know with Kanye West in the past, he's definitely, no one can say he definitely did what he could to shed light and speak truth when it comes to, you know, the black community. You know, if you think about the Bush, was it Bush?
The Biden administration?
No. He was like Bush hate all black people around that time with the Hurricane Katrina happened.
More profoundly devastating is the lasting damage to the survivors' will to rebuild and remain in the area. The destruction of the spirit of the people of southern Louisiana and Mississippi may end up being the most tragic loss of all.
George Bush doesn't care about black people.
Please call.
With, you know, Beyonce at the VMAs. And Taylor Swift one.
We
all know Single Ladies was the most impactful video in that year.
Time,
so I think he's actively done things to speak up. And I was watching a thing by 90 Keys, and he was saying that, well, it was 90 Keys and Cam Newton. They was pretty much saying that when a black person in power is bold enough to put themselves out on the front lines, well, a lot of times in our community, we don't have their back. And I could say honestly, there was a lot of times where we let Kanye, out there
by
herself. And it's not. I don't think it was because we didn't agree with everything that's done, because a lot of times the white media is so powerful and so big that they're able to create a narrative which kind of sway us from
the bigger picture or the point that he was really trying to say.
Exactly, or support what you call it. And I think that's one thing we have to learn how to do, because they do that with every other community. Like Jewish people, they have each other back. Even if you talk about the white LGBTQ community, they're just as powerful as the Jewish people. You talk on them, it's over. You see the same thing that happened with Dave Chappelle.
Yeah, and that's why I feel like it's so true, because I feel like that's why it's so important to basically have, if you're going to identify as a group, I think that when you're basically advocating for your group need, you can't try to help everybody. And what I mean by that is that for the Black community, we had a lot of Black programs that was meant to help Black people that was oppressed, Black people only. And throughout the years, I think to the 20th and 21st century, a lot of the programs that were meant for Black people that was oppressed have got diluted and basically included white women,
all these other minority groups. And so when situations like that transpire, it basically dilutes the purpose of what the group or what the program was meant for. And it was meant for Black people that was being oppressed due to a lot of factors that prevented them trying to get on the same playing field that white people have. And that's why I just feel like it's so important to go over the definition of anti-Semitism. Semiticism?
Yes.
I believe it is.
Because that basically identifies one group, and it's Jewish people. It doesn't include anybody else. And there's nothing wrong with that, because they're basically advocating and explaining what they're about. And I just feel like over time, racism was used as a definition to show what has been done to Black people. But now racism is also used for everything else. And the definition of racism, bear with me, y'all, is prejudice, discrimination, or antagonism directed against a person or people on the basis of their membership in a particular racial or ethnic group. Simply one that is minority or marginalized. A program to combat racism. And the people that was really
broad.
Very broad, exactly. And so even I think in the Constitution, a lot of stuff was ratified to change the language of certain situations that happen in history. Because
language is important.
And language is important. Now, to get back to the language part, so definitions in law, right? Just so you can actually know what the definition and why is it so important when it comes to law, because with law, you're proving a theory. You're proving a point, So definitions are powerful provisions because they control the meaning of terms used throughout a legislative text and in the absence of a contrary intention, the meaning of terms and all other enactments relating to the same subject matter. They have a very strong influence on the interpretation of legislative texts, basically stating that once you classify something as a definition, you're basically classifying this happened. This is real. It's
a fact.
This is a fact. And so all the definitions, all the working definitions that fall along that word have influence when it comes to prosecuting, or making a point, retaliating, suspending somebody from a game or from whatever job they're doing. It allows them to basically push action.
I mean, damn, made a lot of great points. Language is very important. It was something that you touched on about race. I'm trying to circle back to that conversation.
Take your time, because it's a lot to take in. And that's why, I think some of the conversations when it comes to what is Black and what is African American, I feel like people get so caught up in African American, but I feel like I think that when you say that you're African American, you're basically emphasizing obviously you're African descent that came to America. But sometimes when you say you're African American, it also
limits. I feel like it limits.
It limits and also says that you're not indigenous to the place that you grew up. Exactly. Now I understand that everybody in this world came from Africa. But certain terminology, like the census, that's a perfect example. When they do the census and they send that out, it's not really to technically count everybody. It's also to get the written signature that you saying that you identify as this particular group. So when you send those into the census, they're able to marginalize and basically create a story based on what you sign off or who do you identify as. And I just feel like people get caught up on, you're Black or you're African American. When we're talking about racism and we're talking about Black racism, we're talking about Blackness everywhere, no matter what island you identify as or what country you're coming from, because we're talking about the color. The color is what what media and what different communities
society has
ostracized.
Yeah, and it's like if you want to, if that's the world we're gonna live in, let's be realistic about it. You know what I mean? Right. And like I said, when I think of black is everything. Black is indigenous. It's African. Is African American.
Right.
It's Cuban. It's Haitian. It's all those things.
Right.
So that's why I kind of identify with black. But I think going back to that was the point I was trying to get back to the language and law and policy. I feel like that's why it's, you can't fault any community who is smart enough to use their power to get the things that they want.
Right.
So that's why, when it comes to conversations like the Jewish people or, any group that has power and are using it, this is the way the world works. What are we going to do as a community to make it work for us? And how can we develop, words and terminology and make it law? And how can we engage in policy and stuff like that? Because if we're going to live in this type of society, we have to learn how to use the same tools and resources that they use to get our way. You know what I mean? Because kind of like initially that was what we were doing with, you think about the Black Panther movement, which was very successful, which is why, it's not, they cracked down on it because they were very successful in self-governing and creating, their own institutions, their own codes and policies and way of living. And it's like, how can we circle back to that? Those are the questions that we need to ask, because, we can have this fight and this argument and disagreements about what they're doing, but as long as they have power and as long as we're not doing anything to actively, change, and a lot of times, changing it is not us trying to get to the bottom of what they're doing, but change is not trying to argue about what they're doing, whether it's wrong or right, but it's like, what can we do? How can we take power back in our community? What can we learn from them? The good things, because there's a lot, because that's not a lot of things that other cultures and communities do is not innately in us. We wouldn't do what they do, done, which is why we kind of got here in the first place. You know what I mean? But it's like, we got smarten up.
Wow, that was. Yeah. Ooh, I love that. Oof, I hope that motivated y'all.
Yes.
A good book that basically helped me kind of think a little bit different was Powernomics, and what he said was
we manifesting to have him on the show.
Yes, for real.
Claude Anderson
is the author of that book, and it's honestly worth reading. But basically everything that you said, if you want to get a little bit more familiar with what Saint was basically saying, read that book, because it just makes you just think different, and basically it makes you think different with a purpose, basically, before you speak. Because I just feel like you said, a lot of the stuff that we say on media, if we're speaking up for ourselves, it gets tainted. And I just feel like it's so important to work on communication. Yes. And I know with media, I think over time, communication that has been for the Black people on social media, and I'm only saying social media specifically because it's a particular group on social media. It's not all Black people or what you would classify as a Black person. A lot of the language on social media and what's popularized is basically
you talking about AV?
It's basically short language. So a lot of people use the same words. They curse a lot because they have a hard time basically trying to say exactly what they mean to communication. And I feel like, and sometimes Kanye West got caught up because Kanye West is a person that speaks like me. I talk a lot and I speak fast. And so sometimes when you're not given a second to take in what they're saying and figure out how calculative they're being, you'll be more calculative what words come out your mouth. And I've seen Kyrie Irving was interested because I don't follow basketball, but I was very articulate. And when I was watching his, I forgot the conference that they do with the reporters after, and they asked them about the tweet. And that's how everything started blowing up. And he kept it very simple. I can't exactly say what he said, but I guess we could probably post a video of it. Yeah. And he handled himself well. He didn't say too much, but he stuck strong in his point. He didn't apologize, or he didn't dim his light. And I just feel like in certain situations where we finally have the opportunity to speak up, whether it's Nick Cannon, and in some cases when there's a whole bunch of backlash, they start to dim their point. And I just feel like if you're going to say something, you have to just put your back into it and take the heat. And that's one thing that's very can be a little difficult for people that have businesses or people that work for companies or corporations
have
that
a lot on the line.
that have a lot on the line that depend on this resource that's coming
They're
from
on
this
payroll.
on that payroll. Exactly.
Yeah. They're on the payroll, like you said. They're on the payroll, so it's like that's another thing that we have to do. We have to develop our own system where we don't have to rely on these people, institutions that aren't created by us. Because once you're on the payroll and we live in a capitalist system where this is how things work, it's like, yeah, it's only but so much they can say before they, you already know they're going to say that apology. Because Kyrie said the apology, he ended up apologizing, right? I definitely believe they said he said a statement.
I think unfortunately he did make a statement. I think he did say he didn't mean to offend. I don't want to even.
I don't think the apology. I feel like it wasn't an apology where he was kind of like backtracking, like stuff like that. But he did it out like he.
Yeah, I think he kept it cute. Like he didn't apologize too much. Like y'all,
I'm
sorry.
Yeah.
Like I'm sorry, it's a mess up.
Like,
I'm right,
exactly.
but for real, because when I do
he was very political about it.
Very political about it. And I just feel like there was you know what, I do want to shout out to who's the wrestler with the daughter that used to date YoungBoy NBA.
Oh, I don't know.
Y'all know who I'm talking about.
Floyd Mayweather.
So I just want to shout out to Floyd Mayweather. He doesn't really speak about a lot of political stuff. He went to his Instagram and actually posted a wholehearted video to Kyrie Irving himself and said, "Listen, I'm sticking with you. I'm by your side. Don't just because sometimes you need that support, and definitely for somebody that's come from his stature, to be for Kyrie Irving to be ostracized by the media and the NBA." I just feel like it was very warming knowing that someone of his status like Floyd Mayweather went on the air and recorded himself and said like, yo, like,
Kyrie, what's up? I know you're going through a lot. We had a chance to hang out in 2016 when you represented America, when you represented the red, white, and blue. You only want to be treated fair. I was going to post something on one of my social media pages, but I decided to do it the old school way and read it out to you because you're a great person, great father, great athlete, and you believe what you believe. America is the land of the free. Freedom of speech, freedom of religion, and supposedly freedom to choose. Never be controlled by money. I respect you for having some integrity and being your own man. A free mind makes its own choices. An enslaved mind follows the crowd. Stand for something or fall for anything. One man can lead a revolution to stand up and fight for what's right. One choice, one word, one action can change the world. It's crazy how people hate you for being a leader. I hope your actions encourage many others to stand up and say enough is enough. Respect to you, Kyrie, and power to the people.
Don't worry, like we here, we got you.
Yeah.
And I just feel like more of that is needed. I just want to go into the definition of anti-blackness. Now, anti-blackness, we was talking about racism, anti-Semitic. Anti-blackness is a term that I've come to know more about as the years proceed. I don't know exactly when this term was developed. Anti-blackness always been, but anti-blackness is now the term that we're using to define the oppression against black people only. And so anti-blackness is a form of racism that is specifically damaging for black people. This was taken from an article by Natalie Morris. Anti-blackness is the name of for the specific kind of racial prejudice directed towards black people. We see that in terms like BAME, Black, Asian, Minority, Ethnic, and POC, people of color. While these terms can be used in some situations, they shouldn't be used in a reference to specific race unnecessarily. For instance, referring to a black woman as a woman of color when you could refer to her as a black can undermine her specific lived experience of being black. And so I just felt like that. So like I said, if y'all want to check that out, anti-blackness, as per Metro Lifestyle website, check that out. I just feel like she beautifully said that. And what's so familiar when I was doing this research with anti-blackness terminology, I've seen a lot of articles from non-United States states. I've seen them from Canada. I've seen them from the UK. I believe this is a UK magazine. And I was just like so interested. I'm like, wow, like it's so prevalent on other places than the US because and it's made that way.
I think we have learned to condition ourselves like this is an issue that's only here in America. And I think they do that purposely because, like I said, when you travel the world, it's black people everywhere.
Yeah. London, there's a whole bunch of black people
exactly.
there.
And it's like it's a limited mindset that, okay, is this black people here in Africa, maybe the Caribbeans. But no, black people
are everywhere.
It's worldly. And I think that it's a conscious decision on their part while they're doing that. And I think the thing about social media is open up that it's making things a little bit more universal. You see that more, like, okay, there's black people everywhere. The level of racism or prejudice against black people, how it may look different in different spaces, different places. But even going back to social media, I remember you said something about communication, and how I feel like communication has evolved over time. You know, just where everything's going, you know, from TV to radio to now, you know, social media, and where it's going to go, and how important it is for us, as everyone in the world, but as black people, to learn how to effectively communicate. And that's a problem that's within our issue. That's a issue within our community, regardless, whether it's like family relationships or just the way we speak to each other.
Yes.
And so imagine like us being in these spaces and being on these platforms, we have to learn how to effectively communicate our ideas and our perspective, especially when it comes to media, because media is a powerful tool, and people who control media, who have the power to control media, which is like, you know, the control of media is becoming more and more loose because of social media.
Yeah.
But also, even with social media now, you see how they're trying to taking control over that, whether it's through, you know, controlling the algorithm, shadow banning people. It's like the government and the higher ups, quote unquote, the higher ups, how you want to define it, they're always going to find a way to, whenever there's a new thing that breaks the status quo and gives everyone a voice and a platform, whether it's to make money, to share their voice, to do whatever, they're always going to find a way to infiltrate it. And a lot of times they are effective in doing it because they have so much power
over these resources.
But as we know, time and time again, there's always going to be something that breaks
that pattern.
Exactly. So we just have to learn how to, like, you know, understand that, but also, like I said, when communication, we have to understand the power of communication and conveying our ideas. And because a lot of times that's what gets us in trouble. Like Kanye West, like that's what gets him in trouble a lot, is his inability
to articulate what he's trying to say.
Exactly what he's trying to say. And I mean, he could do that when he raps, but when he speaks, it's something different. You know what I mean? Sometimes he's able to do it effectively, and a lot of times he's not. And I don't know.
I think that sometimes a lot of his talk tracks is open to interpretation of what he meant. Yeah. And that's the thing with, like, as a lawyer, you state facts, so there's no you interpret, you make an interpretation based off these facts. Nobody else can interpret otherwise because you presented these facts. And I just feel like that's something that being educated and just basically reading, listen to radio hosts, or, you know, just basically being able to expand your vocabulary, because even as a law student, it's so imperative as a lawyer to know these words.
Exactly.
Like, you would think, oh, you don't need to know those words, but as a lawyer, you do, because that as a lawyer is gonna dignify this person getting locked up or is being free. And so it's the same thing when it comes to communication and being a reporter. You need to know exactly what you're going to say, how you're going to say it, and make sure that nobody can say this.
Because even like us as podcasters and us stepping into this realm, like, there's sometimes when we go back, okay, we can't touch on this topic because we know the extent of research that we have to do. So let's just push this back until we know we can invest the time in doing it, because we know how powerful communicating our ideas are, or, you know, communicating or showcasing you guys a certain topic, and we don't ever want to just talk about something just to talk about it.
Talk about something. Exactly.
Yep. And then, like, you know, it does not be constructive. And I feel like a lot of times in media, because there's so much media nowadays, you find that a lot people are just regurgitating information. Yeah. Not really
thinking about the impact of how that information is regurgitated. And I just want to you pinging some stuff in my head. Yeah. I just want to I just want to bring up the conversation of all these platforms that you know, a lot of the platforms that are on social media you know, are presented, you know, mostly is black people that's being covered, like black celebrities, you know, rappers or etc. Entrepreneurs, businessmen, like Shade Room, Lovely TT, Hollywood Unlocked. You can tell if you go on their page, you can see it's about black people, you know, or people within that limelight.
You want to shout out some more? because I have some too.
Who? Keep going.
Spiritual World, Embracing Black Culture.
No. Those are good ones. I'm talking about the ones that.
Oh yeah, sorry. Yeah, before
those are the good ones that try to uplift you. But the shade room and stuff like I listen. I have the Instagram on some of the pages, and some information I'm able to find out that I wouldn't know on CNN because it's so quick when it comes to social media. But I feel like they need to choose wisely on what they actually promote, because when the situation was going down with Kyrie Irving, people like Lovely TT, and I do like her because she does talk about topics that, you know, Shade Room and those other Instagram people are not going to discuss. But I feel like in some cases she may get lost in the sauce. And I think that when when people post stuff about, oh, Kyrie Irving is getting his black glass, this and that, instead of highlighting those stories, we need to highlight people that's standing with him. Because if you're highlighting the stories of him getting backlash, what are you saying? I know you're demonizing him, and I know you're opening a conversation so people can speak. You're not necessarily agreeing with what they're doing to him, but also think about what you're putting on your platform. You're basically sharing the same message that's being reported. Yeah, the narrative isn't helpful. Yes, to our community. Yes, especially when someone's doing something, saying something that you feel is righteous. Yeah, you need to be a little bit more. They do that a lot. You need to think a little bit more before you post certain stuff, because anything you post can be open to interpretation. And so if you have 100,000 people following your post and you still posting the same thing about Kyrie Irving getting backlash, are you? What is the purpose of you showing that? Are you letting other people see that on all the other platforms? Right. And also, are you letting people know that this is normal to us? Is this something that happens? You need to show more stuff where people are being supported, and that's pretty much all I'm trying to say. I just want to make sure of that. And there was also one more thing that you talked about, communication. Can I shout out to some of the? Oh yeah, So I just want to say, embracing Black culture, whether it's through entertainment, I just feel like these are just great Black people in space of entertainment who are just highlighting us in great ways. Spiritual World, the podcast, I would have to say 19 Keys. Really love him. Relationship Restored is another podcast group that I like. I would say even Don't Call Me White Girl, even though she does she's very, that's someone who I really like in the podcast game, who like is one of my top like people who would like influence. Just because I feel like she does have a balance of, you know, having entertaining, this fun conversations, but she talks a lot on a lot of real shit, and I appreciate her for that. And her transparency as well. And it's in a natural way, because people who wouldn't typically think about certain things like this, they go into her show for entertainment, but she kind of sprinkles it in. Right. What else? Any more Black Twitter? There's a lot of great things on Black Twitter. Black Twitter spaces here and there. Yeah, it's a mix. But there are many other great Black entertainment, Black media, you know, things that are doing really great things for us. So just want to shout out those few. And that actually moved the agenda of, you know, getting Black people to where we always were supposed to be, you know? That part. There was a situation with you said something you want to get back to communication. I just want to So the communication thing that you mentioned earlier, it reminded me of a situation where T.I. had this panel and Candace Owens was on the panel. And I know y'all probably seen it. I think Shady even posted it. And it came out, I think, less than 3 years ago. Do you remember that? And pretty much Candace Owens said something that T.I. and everybody that was in the audience didn't like. And what they started to do was boo her and cut her off in mid-sentence. And I just feel like that's a problem. That's an issue. And that's another communication issue, because if you're going to give somebody the opportunity to converse and basically debate or argue, or even just have the opportunity to have a conversation about it, you cannot cut somebody off because you don't like what they say. Definitely if you're doing it in a panel or in a conference limelight, that's the whole purpose of it. And so, and I feel like that is bad too, because you may be cutting off somebody and now you just cut them off in mid-sentence. Now people are just taking what she said and running with it. Clickbait. When she wasn't even able to get exactly what she wanted to say off her chest. And I understand that we want to shut people down when you don't hear something that you don't like. Definitely if it ain't high, definitely if you don't like it, you know what I'm saying, if it's offending you. But at the end of the day, like you said, at the end of the day, we want free speech. We want Kyrie Irving to say what he want to say and not be penalized. We also have to give people the opportunity to say what they want to say. And you were talking about Black people within the community. I feel like T.I. wouldn't have done that if it was a white person in front of him. And I hate to say that, but you're so quick to cut her off and not even let her finish. Like I really don't see that happening.
Yeah. I also feel
places.
like T.I. exactly. He's like another person who's of the community, who's in our community, who isn't technically the go-to person who should be conducting a conversation like that.
But also, I will say that doesn't mean that he can't, and I do appreciate.
He can't, but if you're gonna be effective about it, like you create that space and then you allow that to happen.
Right. Yeah. I think that's important. I don't want to say rappers and Cardi B or whoever can advocate, but I also feel like if you're gonna, like you said, take that role, you need to be a little bit more effective with the role, and that's not
responsible
with the role. You know, take it serious.
Yeah, I'm not opposed to like rappers or entertainers, engaging in conversation of, I just, at the end of the day, they're people and they have their opinions. My only problem is for me is when they're not properly educated, or at least they're not surrounding themselves with people who are educated and who are able to bring stuff to the conversation. I mean, I feel like if you know you don't have the information about something, but you feel very strongly about it, all right, cool. Create a space because you have the platform, you have the name to do that. Yeah, you can create a space like, okay, boom, I want to have a panel with all these people together from our community who have different perspective, and I just want to be there to kind of like bring the exposure, right? Like do that, you know what I mean? There's different ways that you can do that, and it's very effective because we had someone, I think, who was the boxer back in the day, Muhammad Ali. Was it Muhammad Ali? Yeah,
what boxer? The one that was speaking up for people.
Exactly. Who brought he as a person who he was in his stage of self-discovery, and the person who helped him was Malcolm X. Yeah, and what he did was he brought his star power and connected with Malcolm X, and that brought exposure to Malcolm X and his ideas. And also, like I said, sometimes
they was able to work with each other. This way, they could both advocate what they're trying to say without it being interpreted to whatever or whatever narrative that they're trying to say.
Exactly. So I mean, like I said, I'm not opposed to it. Just because in our day and age, celebrity and fame and it's a very vain thing, but it attracts people. We see that all the time. There's a reason why Shade Room and the Neighborhood Talk or TMZ or what other E! News, all those big platforms have so much eyes on it, and people will draw their attention to entertainment news as opposed to real life shit. I mean, it's the fucking reality that we live in. I mean, I guess.
And think about it this way. Look how quick Kanye, Kanye is Kanye, but look how quick Kanye's programs and contracts was closed off. That means all the people that didn't like what Kanye said, it was like 20 people that was like, no, I need to call this person. I don't like that. Disconnect this. That means they was having communication. Yeah. So the same thing for a person that's going to speak up. You need to make sure that your team is going to have your back. And I just feel like I don't want to say you need to because that's naive. Some people are just not going to take that step to.
Sometimes your team be working. The team works within these. They all connected in some way. Yeah. Because a lot of times you go to a record label. The same people, the people who they're making your lawyer and your accountant, they work for the fucking label. Yeah. And and your management, so they all at the end of the day they getting paid through them, and everyone's making back deals like this. Sometimes Sweetie talked about it, like she said you'll go into a deal with McDonald's, right? Mm-hmm. And your lawyer or your accountant or your people in your management, your team, they're already making back end deals. So they're like, yeah, sign this deal, because they're making more money. They're making it, so it's like. That's why I kind of empathize with especially our people who are in this industry, because it's kind of like it's been like that from years, like how they exploit black talent, and they still doing to this day. Granted, I feel like black talent and black entertainers have progressed to an extent because of social media, and it's giving them more opportunities to create their own things, but also there's still a lot of work to do, and they are still mentally enslaved and still focus and worry about the wrong things.
And I feel like, just to tie it back, I think that in situations like that, we do need to highlight people like Kyrie Irving, because there are people in the community that are speaking up. There are people that are making waves. And although media may say that we're stagnant, I think these opportunities like Kyrie Irving, these are the opportunities to jump on. These are the opportunities to network and reach out to him. All right, what's the next step? And that should be the answer. Anytime when it comes to revolution, And, you know, I think me and you and other people have noticed that there has been a shift in the energy in the last 10 years where Black people are showing up, staying their ground, and taking back more of their power. I think when we see situations like this with Kyrie Irving, we need to jump on these waves and think of the next step.
Yeah, because this was a perfect time for us to have some active change. Like him and Kanye right now, they caused, it was just like back to back. Yeah, it was a ripple effect. And it's like, we had all this momentum and nothing to do with it.
Yeah.
All that happened was Kyrie got ripped from the game. Kanye got ripped from Balenciaga and Gap. Not only did he get ripped from Balenciaga and Gap and Yeezy, they were able to profit off of everything he did and the work that he's done. I remember I went to Balenciaga last week, and Balenciaga and Adidas have a collab. You walk inside that mall, it's somewhere in the city, I can't remember, I think it's on Madison. All I seen was Kanye. I was like, this is all fucking Kanye.
All Kanye.
And the only reason why Adidas and Balenciaga were able to come to that point, because it was a point in time, Balenciaga would have never worked with Adidas. Yeah. If Kanye didn't make Adidas what it was, and Adidas, what he did with Adidas, but with streetwear in general, that's his impact. We can't deny. He has brought streetwear to the level of luxury. Exactly. Right. So now Adidas and Balenciaga could work together, and not only that, Kim could be the face of it, and people are like, oh my God, Kim. No, Kanye. You know what I mean? And I'm looking at the stuff, I'm looking at the items, I'm looking at the campaign. I'm like, yo, this is all Kanye, and it's like, it's unfortunate because, I mean, it's not unfortunate because at the end of the day, I tell people all the time, Kanye West, he is who he is, and he's always going to create. Yeah, he's always going to create, and he's always going to have impact on our people. I just hope that all these things are learning lessons to him, because what he did was, you know, he had an idea and he put well, I said a lot of times these entertainers, it's a still mindset thing where they feel like, okay, I got to this point, and they still don't feel like they're enough. So when he stepped into fashion, he felt like, okay, for me to validate my idea, I have to go to the white, you know, fashion heads, you know, the people who are in, you know, the gatekeepers.
Right.
And what ended up happening, he got fucked over at the end.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, he didn't get fucked. I think it was a lot of learning lessons, but yeah, I mean, he did get fucked over, but not to the point where he's not going to be okay. Right. So hopefully, I hope, I mean, all I can do is hope. Right. Is that, you know, he finds more ways, or this is for anyone in general, how can we create things and sustain things within our own community? Yeah. Yeah. I don't know. Let's see. We'll see. To be continued.
To be continued. I think we can leave it off there. I think it was a lot that we left off.
Yeah.
And you know, if you guys want to shout out, it's $11.99 on Amazon Prime if you want to watch Hebrew to Negroes.
Yes.
I think that in the event that if you are going to speak on something, it's worth watching it and getting to the nitty gritty. And I just feel like other social media platforms need to do the same.
Yeah.
And that's it.
Yeah.
Can't break my word.
That part, I love that.
I just want to give you a quick TLK brief about some recent events that's been happening in the media, and we just basically want to shed light on it. Yes. Saint, take us away.
So, yeah, you know, recently, I'm sure a lot of you guys heard, but pretty much, you know, this young woman, she went on vacation with her friends to Mexico, and during the stay, she had gotten to she got beaten up brutally by the people who she went with. I wouldn't even call this person a friend. And, you know, there was a guy who was in attendance, and pretty much I didn't watch the video just because it was too much for me to like consume. But pretty much they said the guy was he wasn't doing anything to help. Just, you know, at least, you know, fight back and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Pretty much, you know, she ended up in critical condition. Everyone left, even the close guy friend, and ended up going back home to the mom and is saying pretty much not really giving her too much information about what was happening. Yeah. And, you know, now she has passed on. Yeah. It's definitely hard to comprehend, like, how can something like this happen? Because it's like, damn, like those people must have been very deceiving to her, because, you know, like you said, you know, a lot of times, I mean, it's about listening to your body and, you know, knowing who to surround yourself with.
Knowing your heart, feeling your mental, you know.
And I think as you get wiser and newer, if you're doing the work, and it's not even about, if you're doing the work and, you know, if you become wiser, you're able to sense things, especially in your, you know, as you get into your late 20s, you should be very more intentional about who you surround yourself with. So I really just, like I said, I feel like this is only a part of the story. I just don't understand, like, how can, I don't know, I'm very conflicted, like, how can it get to this point? Like, did she not know these people? How did these people felt about her? Was this a setup? You know, it's very sad and very disheartening. But I just want to say, wish my best condolences to, you know, her family, and to send a blessing out. And of course, we just want to, like, shed light on the situation. And like you said, I think the message is, like she said, is just being more mindful of who you surround yourself with, who you allow in your circle, trusting your gut, trusting your body, and
so like, savoring those moments that you do have with your people, because you never know, when will be your last time that you'll be able to say bye.
Life is short and life is long.
Life is short and life is long. Don't be YOLOing, but also savor these moments and take it in.
Yes, and justice for her. I'm listening. Yeah. I'm not above bullshit. I think everybody who was there needs to. Something need to happen, because I don't know what's going on with that. Follow us on Instagram, TikTok, all that good stuff. And please, this is a conversation where we say that, drop comments, let us know what you think. Definitely drop some comments, because we need to push up the algorithm. This is the type of shit y'all want to see. So
right,
push it through.
Tell them.
Great seeing you guys.
Peace.